How many people know someone who complains a lot? Raise your hand. You know someone who complains a lot. Right off the top of your head, you know someone who complains. You can put your hands down. How many people know someone who complains a lot at work? How many people know someone who complains a lot at home? How many people are scared to say they know someone who complains a lot at home? Okay, very good. How many of you right now are complaining about answering these stupid questions? A couple. Okay, very good. Everyone knows a complainer. And even though you may not agree with this assessment, at least not off the top, okay, every one of us at times is a complainer. And my hope is, and my prayer is for today, that by the end of today, you will not only understand, not only you will say, I don't want to be a complainer, but you will understand the spiritual implications and why it is that complaining is a much bigger problem than most of us will realize. Last week, we started this series called I Quit, and last week we said, I quit making excuses. And I know a lot of people who last week was very freeing for them. They said, yes, no more excuses, enough of the excuses, I quit making excuses. Well, my hope is that today some of us have that same attitude towards complaining. We say, you know what, I quit complaining. No matter what happens, I'm not going to complain. For some of us, that will be very, very difficult because some of us have the gift of complaining. You know someone who has the gift of complaining? Who no matter what the scenario is, okay, they can find something to complain about. Whether it's weather, or it's traffic, or it's boss, or it's job, or the service in this restaurant, they can find something to complain about. You know, in my line of work, I get a chance to hear a lot of complaints, okay? I hear a lot of complaints about all kinds of different subjects. So I wanted to try to kind of like see what are the most common complaints and try to gather together the most common complaints. So what I'm bringing to you right now is a list of research that I did online by just typing into Google common complaints and stuff like that, mixed in with my own experience. What my experience tells me that our people, the people sitting in this room here today, tend to complain about, some of the things we complain about. What you're going to discover, and what I've discovered, okay, and I see this very, very clearly, is that we complain about the opposites of things. We complain about opposites. Like, for example, by far, the two top things that people complain about are job and spouse, okay? I didn't say what the order is. I didn't say who is more likely to complain, but those are the top two. People complain about their job and about their spouse. But every time someone comes to me and sits in front of me and complains about my job, then they'll walk out and someone will come and sit with me and complain that they don't have a job. And then someone will complain about their spouse. And then the next person will come in and complain that they don't have a spouse. Someone will complain about they're bored and they have nothing to do. The next person comes in and complains that their life is too busy. We complain about the exact opposite of things. If you try to break down the complaints between men and women, okay, women's top complaints, as you know, as we could guess, are all centered around relationships. Okay, spouse, kids, family, boss. Okay, they're all centered around relationships. Those are the top for women. You want to know men's top complaints? In no particular order: traffic, money, bad drivers, and iPhone freezing or dropping calls. See, at least us men, we have things of substance that we complain about. We have things in the world that need to be changed, okay? One of the things that I read on the list of complaints, some guy was complaining, okay, about people who put the toilet paper on the wrong side. And somehow that struck a chord with me. Because everyone knows that overhand is the right way to go. And you cannot trust anyone who goes underhand and gets their toilet paper like this. It's got to be coming over the top, okay? The point is, we all like to complain. Is complaining really a big deal? Is it really a big deal? Like, who cares? Why are we going to waste the next half hour of our lives talking about how complaining is bad and how we should stop complaining? Like, who cares? Everyone complains. What's the big deal? Even in the Bible, you will see that complaining has always been a part of life. Job chapter 10, verse 1. Now, obviously, Job had a lot to complain about more than anyone else. Look what he says in Job 10:1. He said, I loathe my very life, therefore I will give free rein to my complaint and speak out in the bitterness of my soul. What you're going to see today is that complaining, while it may not appear to be such a bad thing, complaining is an outside manifestation of an inside problem. And if there's complaining on the outside, there's something that's going on the inside. And that's what many of us, we know what this feels like. Something's not right. I'm bitter. I'm upset. I'm scared. I'm angry. I'm whatever. I'm going to give a free rein to my complaint because there's something that feels good about complaining. Even if no one's listening, something that feels good about go on that website and say, overhand toilet paper people. Something feels good about just typing it in and getting it out. Who was the first complainer on this earth? Adam. Very good. Adam, God made everything for Adam was good. God made everything for Adam was good, 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 good. God made Eve. Adam saw Eve and he said, wow, she's not good. Wow, she's very good. All right? Eve was a knockout as far as Adam was concerned because all Adam had before was dogs and cats and animals and stuff like that. So he finally got a human being and a beautiful human being, okay? And she was dressed to impress, okay? Dressed in her birthday suit, all right? Dressed to impress. And Adam said, this is the best thing that ever happened in the whole wide world. And Adam was just on cloud 9. Then what happened? Adam fell, ate the fruit. God said, hey, Adam, what happened? What did Adam do? Well, see, God, it's that woman that you gave me. And this began the beginning of marital complaining. It's her fault. And actually, since you're the one who gave her to me, it's probably a little bit of your fault, and you should take responsibility over your own decisions. And Adam began complaining. I didn't ask for this woman. I didn't ask for her to be around here. Even though Adam was the first complainer in the Bible, if I say biblical and complaining, there's a group of people who are very, very famous for their complaining. That was the Israelites in the desert after they were freed from Egypt. Rewind a little bit for these Israelites. The Israelites, God's chosen people. All the promises about how God was going to prosper them, take care of them. All of a sudden, they found themselves in Egypt as slaves. And they were treated very, very, very badly. They were suffering. And these Israelites, day and night, prayed to God with one prayer. What was their one prayer, their one wish, their one dream, the one thing they wanted more than anything else was, God, get us out of here. That's all they wanted. They cried, God, get us out of here. We can't take it here anymore. God, get us out of here. God says, okay, I got you. What does God do? God sends Moses, starts a series of signs and wonders, the 10 plagues. God sends them out into the wilderness. They start to get scared in the wilderness. He says, no, don't worry. I know you're going to be scared. I'm going to give you a pillar of fire by day. A pillar of cloud by day, pillar of fire by night. You know I'm with you? Here, I'm going to be with you everywhere, and I'm going to lead you where to go. Just like we say in the song, when I go, you go. When I stop, you stop. When I turn left, you turn left, because you don't know where you're going. Don't worry, I'll take care of you. You're hungry? I'll feed you from heaven. You're thirsty? I'll feed you from a rock. You get to the Red Sea, I'll part the Red Sea. I will part the Red Sea for you. Everything that you need. I'll kill your enemies in the Red Sea. Like everything that you could possibly have asked for, I gave it to you. And he fed them by his very hand from heaven. What did they do? They complained because they didn't like the food. After all that, They complained because they didn't like the food. Look what it says, Exodus 16, just after the parting of the Red Sea. Then the whole congregation of the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said to them, oh, that we, watch this self-pity, this song here. Oh, that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by pots of meat, and when we ate bread to the full. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. Oh, that we had died in Egypt. Oh, poor us. Our life is so hard here. And you did all this, and we're going to die, and we don't have nice food, and we're just going to get buried out here. We wish we had been back there. Even though when you were there, you complained to get out. And now that you're out, you complain to go back in. They kept on complaining and complaining. And what we're going to see is God didn't take too kindly to their complaining. God wasn't very fond of the spirit and the attitude which they had. Here's the thing about complaining that we're going to talk about today. Complaining has a very, very high cost. And we're going to break down what that cost is. And what you're going to see is it has a very, very high cost with each other, but it also has a very, very high cost with God. And complaining, as much as it annoys me, it annoys God. As much as it offends me and you, it offends God even more so. No one likes to be around a complainer. And what we're going to see is that God is the first and foremost. Why is complaining so bad? The first cost of complaining is it offends God. God is offended. God is annoyed. God is not happy when his people complain. Before I get too far in here, something I wanted to say. I want everyone today, kind of like we did last week. Last week we talked about excuses. It's very important that we don't rationalize our behavior. Because it's very easy, like when I say complaining, you say, oh, I'm going to take good notes for my husband today. He needs to read this one. Or I'm going to slide these under my boss's door. It's very easy to do that. And I'm not complaining, I'm just venting. I'm sharing. I'm making prayer requests. Okay? It's very easy to do all that nonsense. But I'm asking you today that you don't do that. Don't rationalize. Don't make excuses. Be honest. Complaining offends God. How? Why? You know something I said before, and I stand by this statement. If you want to learn about God, the best thing you can do to learn about God is have kids. Because when you have kids, you realize the stuff we put God through. Parents, how do you feel about children's whining? How do you feel when you do so much for your children, you provide so much for them, you give them everything that they need and then some, and then you hear, I'm bored. I'm tired of this. I need new toys. I'm bored. When do we get this? I'm bored. And it takes every ounce of self-control you have not to shake them and say, you wretched little, ungrateful little brat, you. We hate complaining with our kids. We hate whining with our kids. You know, sometimes, I don't know, I feel like the same way God looks at us. Numbers 11:1 says, now when the people complained, it displeased the Lord. It displeased him. For the Lord heard it, and his anger was aroused. So the fire of the Lord burned among them and consumed them in the outskirts of the camp. I just wanted to yell at my kids and give them one of these. Look what God did when they complained. Man, he burned fire burned and consumed in the outskirts of the camp. The next time you come home to your house and you see fire on the outskirts of your house, know that you may be complaining too much. God takes this stuff seriously. Later on in the story, Moses comes to God and says, hey God, people are complaining. They're complaining, and they're complaining to me. And God said, hey, Moses, you sit down. They're not, even though they're complaining to you, they're complaining about me, and I'm going to handle them. Because God does not like complaining. The second thing about complaining is it carries significant consequences. And this is at two levels. At a human level, as well as a spiritual, divine level. I read a nice quote about complaining. They're talking about how everyone hates to be around a complainer. No one likes to be around a complainer. Complaining is like spiritual bad breath. That when you have it, what people do is they might smile at you, but then they just slowly, thank you very much. It pushes people away because no one likes to be around people like that. Look at here the consequences of complaining. Numbers chapter 14. Look at what God says. Look how the spiritual bad breath, look how it pushes God away from the people. How long shall I bear with this evil congregation who complain against me? Evil congregation who complains against me. I have heard the complaints which the children of Israel make against me. Say to them, as I live, says the Lord, just as you have spoken in my hearing, so I will do to you. The carcasses of you who have complained against me shall fall in this wilderness. You shall by no means enter the land which I swore I would make you dwell in. Hold on, time out. This is a serious verse right here. This verse, the people complained. God freed them. And God freed them. When he freed them, he told them what? He's saying, I promise you, I'm going to free you, and I'm going to take you to the promised land. I promise you. I'm God. I'm God of your fathers. I promise. I'm going to free you. I'm going to take you to here. And all I did is complain. And they complain. The food isn't nice. The water is bitter. We're tired. We're hungry. Those people are scary. We want to go back home. We don't want to die here. God said, okay, you want to complain like that? Watch this. Even though I swore that I would take you there. I swore I would take you there. You didn't even know about there. I swore. Now, no. You're going to die here. Oh. Did you ever think, because I know this wouldn't be us, this is just them, but did you ever think that you may be losing the blessing of God because you're complaining? See, we don't think like that. Did you ever think that there's something that God really, really wants to give you, but because you keep complaining that you don't have it, God said, I'm not going to give it to you? Parents, do we do this? I have a lollipop for my kid. I'm going to give it to him today. And all day he says, give me my lollipop, give me my lollipop, give me my lollipop. No lollipop. You wanted a lollipop. I wanted to give you a lollipop. Because you're whining, no lollipop. You need to learn that life ain't about the lollipop. And you need to learn that you cannot complain against the one who has given you so much. You can't do that. Is there any chance that maybe, just maybe, that maybe God wants to bless you, that God wants to give you, because he's God and he loves to give good things. But the reason that he isn't is because you keep complaining. And then God says, okay, you're going to keep complaining that way? Then you, by your own mouth, the words that you have said, just say to them, as I live, just as you have spoken. Complaining has serious consequences. On a human level, complaining, I have this theory in life that we draw people who are like ourselves. Okay, that's my theory. Is that as I am, if I show up into a new environment, like if you pick me up, like for example, I like sports. If you pick me up and you drop me in the middle of 1,000 people, randomly, whatever, gathered at some place, and I'm talking, I'm going to naturally gravitate to the people who are like me, have similar interests, have similar stuff. It's natural. Why is it that we see this? Take the bad kid out of this school and put him in this school. What does he do? He becomes the leader of the bad kids in this school. How? Because the bad kids have a way of finding each other. Same thing with the complaining people. When you're a complainer, you know what you do? You bring negativity and complaining around yourself. Story one time of a guy who was a realtor, all right? A realtor helped people find houses. And a family moved into the area. And he was helping his family find a house. And his family was like really, really picky and like asking a million questions. Finally, they found this place that they liked. Then they asked the realtor, what are the people like in this area? What are the people like in this area? So the realtor asked them a question. He said, well, what were the people like in the area that you came from before? Like you came from that town, what were they like there? So the people said, oh, no, the people there were really bad people. They were judgmental. They were gossips. They were busybodies. They were really, really bad people. So the realtor told them, well, you know what? Unfortunately, I'm afraid you're probably going to find the same kind of people here. And then they left. Next day, another family comes to look at the same house. This family is very pleasant, very chipper. Family asked the same question. What are the people like in this town? So the realtor asked them, what were the people like in the town that you came from? They said, oh, the people there were great. Real good friends there. People who really cared, nice people, good all-around people. The realtor said, I have good news for you. I think you'll discover the exact same kind of people in this neighborhood as well. We draw people like ourselves. If you want to be negative and you want to complain, I promise you, you will never, ever run out of things to complain about. There will never be a shortage at work or at home or in your family or with your kids. There will never be a shortage of things to complain about. There's something, maybe y'all heard of this, called confirmation bias. All right, those who studied like sociology or psychology may have heard of this. Confirmation bias is the following. Here's the definition, then I'll explain what it means. The tendency for people to favor information that confirms their preconceptions or hypotheses, regardless of whether the information is true. Basically, what that means, that confirmation bias is something we all have, that when I put something in my head, if I have a preconceived bias in my head about something, then I will find a way to make it true. Because what I will do is, I will interpret new information around that bias to make it true. Does that make sense? So if I put in my head something, like for example, let's say someone is new here to church today. Let's say someone first time here at Light and Life. And let's say you came against your will. Came because your mom made you, or your husband made you, or your wife made you, whatever. You're here reluctantly. All you want to do is go home and watch 7 hours of pregame for the Super Bowl. That's all you want to do. You're bitter that you're here. You probably put in your mind, I'm going to go, it's going to be a waste of my time, it's not going to be relevant, it's going to have nothing to do with my life. And I guarantee you that you've already found 15 reasons why that's true. Why it's irrelevant, why it's not meaningful to you, doesn't apply to your life. And you could be sitting next to someone else who came in with the exact opposite bias, who said, today I know God is going to speak to me. And that person is going to hear the voice of God today, and the exact same words are going to change that person's life. Why? Preconceived bias. Confirmation bias. If you want to be critical, there'll never be a shortage of things to be critical about. If you want to be bitter, there'll never, ever be reasons, you'll never run out of reasons to be bitter, resentful. If you don't want to forgive, there'll be a ton of reasons that you can find not to forgive that person. Sometimes you find someone, let's say, like a young lady who was like treated badly by a guy, like when she was young or something like that. And in her head, all men are jerks. In her head, no good guys. They're all jerks. Look, it is easy for that girl to go through the rest of her life and with every single one of us guys to find something wrong. And she can prove her theory time and time and time and time and time again and say, see, I knew he was a jerk. See, I knew he was a jerk. See, I knew he was a jerk. But the reason that they're jerks is because she already made up her mind way in advance. And my worry is that we do the same thing. Now, you may be sitting there and say, well, that doesn't apply to me. Doesn't apply to me. I'm not a negative person. Look, research shows, this was actually something, this was shocking to me. Research shows, only God knows how they do this research, but somehow, research shows that the more blessed you are in life, meaning the more that you're given, the more likely you are to have a negative attitude. Like it's the correlation like this. The one who has little has a very positive attitude, and then it goes like this in life. I don't know how they do that, but they do that. Also, research shows that over time, we are becoming more and more critical and negative and complaining of a society. And there's never been a more negative than there is now. And then you put the people in this room, we say we're the most blessed people in the world, and we are. Take this stuff seriously. And one guy, one researcher, said something interesting, which, again, I don't know if it's true, but it sounds cool to me. He made the connection between the size of the family and the spirit of complaining. Like, those who come from small families tend to be more complainers than those who come from big families. Like, the only child is a complainer, okay? And those who come from a family of 12, like cheaper by the dozen, tend to be less complaining. His point was, the smaller families lead to a greater sense of entitlement. Thought about it. Difference between small families and big families. Let's take dinner time. In a small family, 1 child, 2 child, what would you guys like for dinner? What would you like for dinner? No, I don't like that, I like this. I like, okay. Let's say you have 6, 7 kids. Are you going to go and say, what do you want for dinner? What do you like for dinner? That ain't going to work. I'm going to cook what I'm going to cook. I'm going to put it in front. And if you like it, you eat. And if you don't like it, more for your brother. Small families, the family tends to conform to the children. Large families, the children have to conform to the families. When the family is always conforming to the child, what that child is taught says that I am the center. I'm the center. And everything conforms to me. Here's the stage, I'm center stage. I'm the main character of this plot. I'm the one who everyone else has to conform to meet my needs. And it may not seem like a big problem when they're young, but it ends up being a big problem because we do the same thing with God. Because then we look at God and say, hey, God, I didn't order that for dinner. Man, I didn't order that for my life. I wanted fresh, just like the Israelites. I don't want bread. I want meat. I don't want that kind of meat. I want that kind of meat. And we start to make God, I feel like embarrassed to say it, God to conform to us. That's why at its root, complaining is a spiritual problem. At its root, complaining is a spiritual problem. And the problem is that you have placed yourself as the main character in this number called life. In the play, you made yourself the main character, and you made God a supporting character. And even worse than that, you're a diva. And if God doesn't do things to make you look like a star and shine, then you complain against the supporting character. And you complain against all these people that you don't shine the way you want to shine. We're all divas. We're all divas. And when we don't get what we want, we complain. And we don't get it how we want, we complain. And when someone doesn't treat me the way they want to be treated, we complain. Even though we treat them, doesn't matter how we treat them, but when they treat me, we complain. And we think, not just we complain, it is our God-given right. It is my inalienable right to stand before God and explain to him what he should do and how he should do it, and how he should correct the problem. Well, let me break it to you like this. Here's the truth. Sorry to shatter your diva mindset. You ain't the star of the show. You're not the main character in life. God is. He's the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. You are not. He's the master and you're the servant. And he does not exist to meet my needs. I exist to serve him. Not he exists to serve me. Like God is not up in heaven right now saying, oh, they're sad. They're complaining. Oh, I messed up again. Oh, how can I fix this? They're sad. How can I make them happy? He doesn't exist to make you happy. He doesn't exist to glorify you. We exist to glorify him. And the reason that you complain is because you get these two backwards. So what do? We got to solve this problem. We realize it has significant consequences. God is annoyed by complaining. I may be losing out on the blessing of God because of my complaining. I may be setting myself for negativity for the rest of my life because of my complaining. I got to do something about it. But how? Some of us, complaining is so deeply ingrained inside of us, we don't even know where to begin. Like, we complain about everything. Some of us, I bet you, if you look at your relationships, there are certain relationships that exist in your life, social circles, that the basis of them is complaining. That the only things you have in common is a common dislike for someone or something else. And the whole basis of it is we get together and we complain about this person or about this situation. How do I fix it? We're going to look at Philippians chapter 2, from verse 14 to verse 18. And in this passage, St. Paul is going to answer for us the what, the why, and the how of complaining. The what, the why, and the how of complaining. All right? First, let's start with the what. The what he begins, the what is, do not complain. And that's said very, very, very clearly in the beginning verse, where he says, do all things without complaining and disputing. Let me say that again. Do all things without complaining and disputing. Wives, that ain't for your husband. That's for you. Husbands, that ain't for your wife. That's for you. It's not for your boss. It's not for your kids. It's not for your neighbors. It's for you. You do all things without complaining and disputing. Disputing is another word for arguing. If you have a problem in a relationship, and this applies to every relationship, friendship level, boss level, spouse level, whatever, you have a problem in that relationship, just take one verse for this week and apply one verse. Just do this one verse, just for 1 week. Try 7 days. Try 7 days to not complain, to not argue, to not dispute. Try it and see what it will do to your life. I guarantee you, it'll transform relationships in ways that you couldn't imagine. If you can stop complaining about your boss, it'll transform your relationship with your boss. Same with your husband, same with your wife, same with your kids, same with your whatever. Why? Because like I said, complaining is when I put myself in the center of the stage and it's all about me. So what I'm going to do for this 1 week is I'm going to take myself out of the center. I'm not going to be at the center, because when I'm at the center, all it is this wasn't done, and this wasn't done, and this didn't meet my expectations. I'm going to take myself out of the center, and it's not going to be about my expectations for 1 week. I'm going to not complain, not grumble. It's hard. I know it's hard. And some of you, I know, it's not easy. If I were to give you one piece of advice, I'm going to tell you in a little bit the how of how you should do it, but I'll just give you one little thing, which we'll focus on more in a little bit. The key is making sure that you understand that complaining is a choice that you have. It's a choice. You choose it. You choose to focus on negative or focus on positive. For example, husband and wife come in, sit down, problems. He's this, and she's a no good. Complaining. All right, brother, sit. Okay, I know that you hate his guts. Okay, that's fine. I hate his guts too. That's fine. No problem. But tell me, is there anything good about him? Well, is there anything good about him? And I force couples, even though it's usually very much against their will, say something good about the other person. All right, tell me something else good. Tell me something else. I mean, you married him at one point in time. There must have been something good inside him. Tell me more good stuff. And after a few minutes, we'll realize that yes, while he does have these flaws, 2 or 3 things, that the list of good far outweighs the bad. But it's just a matter of what you choose to focus on. And if you choose to only see those 2 negative things and you focus on them, then yes, with time, you won't even remember that these exist. It's your choice of what you choose to focus on. Challenge for you this week: no complaining. Can you do it? 1 week, no complaining. And again, I'm not saying 1 week of telling your wife not to complain. I'm saying 1 week of you not complaining. 1 week where anytime you get A, you do A. Even better. This is, okay, so challenge 1, no complaining. The second step, if you can do the second step, just stay with the first and just bite. But if you can hold, then do something positive. Do Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29. It says, let no corrupt word proceed out of your mouth. That's the first step. Look, Mike, no corrupt word. But what is good for necessary edification, that it may impart grace to the hearers. Try to look and then open with something positive. Something that builds up. Something that imparts grace to the hearers. Something that edifies and is good for necessary edification. I'm not saying the rest of your life. I'm saying for 1 week. Try to say good things and see good things in all situations. You're stuck in traffic, and there's traffic. There's an accident up there, and there's traffic. And I want to complain and go crazy. Why don't I thank God that I'm not the one in the accident? You get out here to the parking lot after church, and there is 10,000 cars out there that are in your way between you and the pizza at your house. Instead of complaining for 1 week, why don't you say, hey, thank God that there are people who want to come to church. Like, this is a good problem to have, people. I don't like the parking problem as much as you don't like it, but this is a good problem to have. I'd rather than in the opposite way. Same thing, like I said, with job and spouse. Yeah, your husband may be and your wife may be, but thank God you at least have one. Thank God you have a job and you're not struggling without one. Let what comes out of your mouth be building up. That's the what. Next is the why. Why? Why should I not complain? So that I can become like Christ. So that I can become like Christ. Now, the strange thing is, before I read this passage, I wouldn't say never, but I usually wouldn't link lack of complaining with Christ-like. Like, there'd be other things, like Christ was pure, Christ was loving, Christ was forgiving. But St. Paul here links Christ with lack of complaining. Look what he says. Philippians chapter 2, verse 14 and 15. Again, the same verse we just read. Do all things without complaining and disputing, that you may become. Why? Why no complaining and disputing? Why? That you may become blameless and harmless, children of God, without fault in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world. Interesting verse. It says, you want to be children of your heavenly Father? Don't complain. Like, could have said, like, don't lie, don't steal, don't cuss, don't hit each other. He said, don't complain, that you may be child of God. Why? Again, because it shows the link, the importance of the issue. The issue here is not the complaining words. The complaining words are an outward manifestation of inside heart condition where I have put myself at the center of the stage. And that's why complaining is really, really bad. Because it puts you in the center of the stage and it makes God your supporting actor. And what God says is that we need to flip this situation. Remove yourself from the center. Put God at the center. And when you do that, then you become like Christ. Then you become a true child, daughter, son of God. It's important that you realize the connection here between the two. You know what usually happens when we realize that we're like negative or we're critical? What we do is we just try to fix here. Okay? I'm not going to say these words. So inside, I'm like, "Ugh!" But outside, I'm like, thank you, thanks be to God, yes, but inside, I'm like, "Ugh!" And we only solve the outside problem, and that's short term. Yeah, you can force your mouth shut for a week, but you want to solve the problem for long term, you got to fix on the inside. Why? Because like the Lord taught us in Matthew chapter 12, verse 34, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. The goal is not to train my mouth not to say those words. At times, it's going to have to be that. But the long-term goal is to train my heart not to think like that and not to behave like that. And how do I do that? Well, that gets us to number 3. The how, the what was do not complain. The why was to become like Christ. The how, this ain't going to be easy. This is what you're going to do for a week. I will choose to rejoice no matter what. I'm going to go and play offense. Because as we all know, the best defense is good offense. And I'm going to, for this week, not just try to not complain. I'm going to try to rejoice and give thanks and be grateful and be happy, no matter what the situation is. Look what St. Paul says. After he speaks about the complaining, he goes on and says, yes, and if I am being poured out as a drink offering on the sacrifice and service of your faith, I'm glad and rejoice with you all. What does that mean when he says, I'm being poured out as a drink offering? He's being poetic. What is he saying? I'm being poured out as a drink offering. It means I'm going to get killed. I'm dying here. This was written at the very end of St. Paul's life, Philippians, okay, as he's in a jail cell, awaiting, he's going to be executed. He's old anyway. He knows that his days are numbered. He knows that my time on this earth is pretty much done. I'm going to be killed. And most of us, if we're sitting in a jail cell at the end of our life, after doing everything right in life, and serving God and serving people and being faithful and going through all the stuff he did, will be sitting there and saying, I'm bitter, I'm upset, why you left me here like this? How could this be? I'm innocent, get me out of here. Where's my lawyer? Like, we'd be doing all that stuff. St. Paul said, hey, you know what? I'm glad. Glad? I rejoice. What? I rejoice? And watch what he says. For this same reason, you also be glad and rejoice with me. How could he say that? How in the world could he say that? How could he sincerely be treated like this, disrespected, dishonored, accused falsely? What? And he says, I rejoice. You know, as he's saying these words, I think back to, this is the same guy who also said, back to my stage example, same guy who said, hey, me, I've been crucified. It's no longer I who lives. Christ lives in me. He said, I die daily. He said, for me to live is Christ, to die is gain. St. Paul had already figured this stage out. And he said, you know what? Christ is at the center of the stage. I'm way over here. And you know what? I'm lucky just to be on the tippy edge of the stage. He's center, and he put me on the tippy edge. He put me here. He said, it's not about me. I figured that out a long time ago. It's not about me. It's not about what I want. It's not about my comfort. And you know what? Because it's about him, if my dishonor brings him honor, I rejoice. If my discomfort brings him glory, I rejoice. Because it's not about me. It's about him. Can you say that? Can you say that? Maybe your discomfort, God is going to bring glory to himself. Can you say that I rejoice in it, or complain? Maybe you being disrespected and dishonored will bring honor and glory to him. Can you say that or not say that? St. Paul, as you read later on, okay, in this passage, and he speaks about it all over the epistles, it says, hey, if you knew who I was, what I'd done, where I've been, what I deserve, and what God has given me, that's what St. Paul's mentality was. Is if you knew what I deserve, what God has given me, I'm going to complain against God? I'm going to complain against God? It doesn't happen often to me, but it does happen every now and then, that sometimes the devil messes with my head. And I think, my belief is, that anyone who serves God for a period of time, especially like the longer and like the more involved you are, the more the devil's going to mess your mind with this. Because sometimes I find the devil attack me about like my life as a priest and the ministry and all that kind of stuff. Say, hey man, you're making all these sacrifices. That's a lot. And look, you'll never have a normal family life. Like, your wife is off on the weekends. That's when you work the hardest. Like, you're never going to have the normal and the kids, and you aren't going to be able to, like, get, you know, like, even sometimes, like, monetarily and financially, like, you know, there's, like, a cap of where this thing is going right here. And sometimes the devil hits you in the head, and he messes you up. And then anytime he does that, and I get myself right with God, I always find God. I told you guys this before. God deals with each one as he is. Those who are nice, God is nice to you. Me, my head is a little bit stubborn here, so God has to kind of get through my head, so he kind of gives. So God tells me the same thing. He says, hey, wait a minute. You don't want to be in this job? You don't want to be serving me? You're welcome to go. You're not doing me no favors. I say, oh, you're right. And God doesn't, he keeps on going. He says, there used to be a time where you were thankful. And there used to be a time where you were appreciative. And there used to be a time where you used to say that I'd rather be a doorkeeper in the house of God than be a millionaire outside. You used to say that. And there used to be a time where you used to pray the words of King David used to say. And you say that one day in your house is better than 1,000 elsewhere. There used to be those days. But now, all of a sudden, you started to move a little bit too close to center stage. You used to be happy to serve for my glory. But now, you starting stand too close to center stage. So God, right there. You know, in Arabic, effa, okay? Backside of the head. And that's when God brought me this verse. And this has been my theme verse ever since. And I'm sure anytime someone like thanks me or says, thank you, Abuna, you're like the best, or you changed my life or whatever, I say 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 12. Easy. I thank Christ Jesus our Lord, who has enabled me, because he counted me faithful, putting me into the ministry. I thank him. And if you read on the rest of this, St. Paul goes and says, I who was a blasphemer, I who was an insolent man, I who was. And then God said, that's okay, let it go, come on, you're with me. But then you know what? There may be some slight inconveniences along the way, but you're with me. Man, how am I say no? How am I to complain on that? That God pick me, that God choose me, and God give me, and I'm the luckiest person in the world. But you got to choose to rejoice. You got to choose to see the positive. You got to choose to stop complaining. You got to realize that this complaining is serious. Everyone here needs to ask themselves some questions. Everyone needs to be honest. Am I putting myself in the center? Is my marriage all about me? Is my career all about me? Is my family all about me? Am I complaining about my kids because they're not meeting me and my needs and my expectations? Is it all about me? Like, am I the center here? I complain about the church because it's not about me. I complain about my job because it's me. You got to ask yourself, who's at the center stage of your life? Complaining is costly. Complaining has a very high cost to it. And unfortunately, the Israelites didn't realize the cost of it. They kept going, they suffered. And their complaints came true because they refused to change it. I hope and I pray I really hope and pray that doesn't happen to you. But I'll be honest, I really hope and pray it doesn't happen to me even more. Sorry, I'm honest. Complaining has a very high cost. And last week, no excuses. I quit making excuses. We manned up. We said, I'm not making excuses no more. I'm going to try, and if I fail, I'm going to try again. No excuses. This week, we need to man up again and say, I quit complaining. I'm going to force myself not to complain. Why? So I become like Christ. How? By choosing to rejoice no matter what the situation is. I promise you, do that for 1 week, and I promise you, your life won't be the same. I promise you, your life won't be the same. Let's stand up for a prayer.